The Borderlands franchise just celebrated its 10-year anniversary, so it seems fitting that the father of the online looter shooter should release its highly anticipated sequel to 2012's Borderlands 2 this year. Fans of the franchise have been looking forward to seeing how Gearbox will move the story and the series forward, and where Borderlands will land in a market that is already saturated with games of a similar genre. So how does Borderlands 3 compare to titles like Anthem, Destiny 2 and The Division 2? And more importantly, as a long-time fan of the franchise, how does it fare when compared to its predecessor, which is still considered by many to be one of the best looter shooters of all time? Well, the aim of this review is to answer these questions while exploring what the game gets right and what it gets wrong by looking at 4 key areas: the story, the gameplay, the loot and the game's performance. So let's start with the story, shall we? Borderlands 3 picks up 7 years after the events of Borderlands 2. Once recovering Pandora's Vault Key, our new Vault Hunters and the Crimson Raiders take to the stars on the new and improved spaceship Sanctuary in a quest to find the remaining vaults and to stop the game's main antagonists, the Calypso twins, from gaining the power that lies within. While exploring the 5 new planets on offer, players meet an array of returning and new characters along the way. So what were my thoughts on the story? Personally speaking, I don't think it is as bad as a lot of people have said. For the most part, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the bigger scale of the setting. I loved the choice to take to the stars and embark on a galactic quest to find the vaults. Each of the planets were interesting and offered a varied array of environments, wildlife and enemies to tackle. And in terms of the new characters on offer here, I particularly liked Lorelei and Wainwright Jacobs. I didn't hate Ava as most other people seem to. Yes, she is an annoying and whiny teenager in parts, but I think most of the hatred was more to do with people's anger over the treatment of one character and Ava's apparent elevation. There is definitely a larger focus on Lilith and Tannis, so if you don't like these characters much or are not especially interested in Sirens, you may find the focus of the story uninteresting. For me though, I played Lilith in the original Borderlands and Maya in Borderlands 2, so I was heavily invested in both and extremely interested in the history and lore of Sirens and their powers and connections to the Vaults and the Iridians. I would have liked more focus on some of the returning characters. There isn't enough Mordecai, Brick or Tiny Tina for my liking, and I definitely would have liked to see more character development for these characters. There were also several unresolved storylines. The ending of Tales from the Borderlands is not really explored, and Fiona and Sasha don't even appear. Similarly, the setup in the pre-sequel by the Watcher and the importance of Athena, or the warning that war is coming, doesn't come to fruition at all. Will these threads be unwoven in DLC or the inevitable sequel that we're sure to get after the huge commercial success of Borderlands 3? I guess we'll have to wait and see, but it was disappointing that they weren't explored here. So how does the writing and humour stand up in comparison to previous entries in the series? Well, the typical Borderlands humour is here. If you liked the humour in the previous games, then I'm sure you'll enjoy what's on offer, and if you didn't, then it's probably best to avoid this game. I would say the humour and writing was definitely hit and miss. There were some brilliantly funny lines and some that just landed flat. Sometimes it definitely felt that the writers were trying to be funny and the humour on occasions comes off as forced. Also, there were opportunities for the game to take itself a bit more seriously and address some very real, dark and emotional moments, like those that had happened in Borderlands 2, but it just doesn't quite hit that tone or depth of writing. In fact, some of the best written moments and golden gems are not even found in the game's main campaign. They're found in the multiple side missions available, which are well written, offering interesting and engaging storylines and characters. If you only play the main campaign and skip the side missions, you are definitely doing yourself a disservice. There are also tons of hilarious Easter eggs and references to well-known television shows, games, and even celebrities. I won't spoil any by mentioning them in detail here, except to say that exploration is definitely rewarded. Next, let's talk about the game's main villains, the Calypso twins. Certainly, they have a lot to live up to, following on from the incredibly charismatic, wisecracking handsome Jack, the main antagonist from Borderlands 2. A fan favourite, one could say that they had an almost impossible task, and certainly when comparing the Calypso twins to handsome Jack, they don't quite measure up. One of the biggest surprises, though, in reading reviews and opinions on Borderlands 3 is just how hated the Calypso twins are. Absolutely, they are over the top and definitely are irritating in their almost caricature portrayal of live streamers, and as the story progresses you do certainly grow to hate and despise them, but that's more because they are written that way. You're meant to hate them, they're meant to be irritating, otherwise what's the point? Better to have written characters that players either love or hate than characters that they don't especially care about. In this way, Borderlands 3 is superior to Anthem and The Division 2, which were both guilty of having characters that weren't particularly memorable. So from this perspective, I don't especially hate the Calypso twins, and I can put up with their irritating personalities and actions. In fact, I love to hate them because I'm meant to. Finally, there are some inconsistencies in the writing and things that are just kind of taken for granted and not really explained, especially when it comes to the Siren's abilities and transfer of set powers. I would have liked the writers to take more time to flesh out these things, even focusing more on Reese, on the Iridians, on the Calypso twins, their background and motivations, and even the end, though I won't spoil anything, comes out of left field and leaves you thinking, what just happened, at the end of a story which leaves you feeling unfulfilled and with more questions than answers. So yeah, looks like a sequel will be required. Next, let's look at the gameplay and quality of life improvements found in Borderlands 3. Let's start with one of the biggest draws to the game, the Vault Hunters. Just like its predecessors, the game offers 4 playable characters from the onset. Each are unique and offer a plethora of gameplay and combat options. We have Mose, the gunner, with her beloved mech suit Iron Bear, Amara, the celebrity siren with her multiple fists of fury, the wisecracking operative Zane, an Irishman with some wicked one-liners who wields a drone, shield and decoy hologram, and finally Flak, the Beastmaster, a cyborg with a heart of gold who loves his pets. Each are hugely enjoyable to play. Similar to previous titles, each Vault Hunter has 3 skill trees that can be fully customized, each focusing on different builds, boosting elemental damage, health regeneration, and durability, or melee, gun or grenade and skill damage. However, for the first time, players can now choose between 3 action skills and any number of passive skill augments that can radically change the playstyle of each character. Players now have the freedom to pick and choose different skills from different trees and experiment with multiple builds. Never have the characters felt this accessible, and it's a lot of fun and adds massive replay value to the game. I myself have a level 50 Amara, and I'm now working on leveling my Zane. Before long, I will move on to Mose and finally Flak. Never have the Vault Hunters captured my interest and imagination so much that I just have to play all 4 to see what insane builds I can create. Now we've covered the combat and Vault Hunters on offer, let's talk about some of the quality of life improvements made in the 7 years since Borderlands 2, for there are many that need mentioning. We finally have a more convenient fast travel system where you can travel freely between maps and locations by simply moving to the map and selecting the location and fast travel waypoint required. This makes travel between areas much easier and quicker and is gratefully received by seasoned Borderlands players. The only downside with this is the lack of multiple fast travel waypoints available on some of the larger maps, which can be quite annoying and time consuming when racing across the map to reach a mission point or collectible objective, of which there are many. It can also be irritating when respawning after death, which can be quite far from your objective and your teammates if not near a save point. A useful ping system seems to have been lifted straight from Apex Legends and allows players to communicate without having to shout instructions over the comms. They can ping loot and chest locations or instruct teammates to focus on particular enemies and coordinate their efforts. It's both simple and seamless to use. It's a fantastic system that should be incorporated into all online team-based games, in my opinion. The new introduction of cooperation mode and instance loot is also a change that I am very happy to see. No longer do friends have to pause awkwardly as you try to navigate uncomfortable discussions and agree who can take certain legendaries and rare weapons and relics. This new cooperation mode also allows friends to play together irrespective of level by adjusting the level of enemies to match your own, allowing you to join their game seamlessly and continue to be sufficiently challenged and gain gear relevant to you while continuing to build your own character without being punished for playing with a player of a lower level than your own. And then we have the new lost loot mechanic, which will collect any blue rarity or higher tier items that you missed and lost in the world. This means that players can happily play through the game without worrying about missing out on some sweet loot, which will be waiting for them when they return to Sanctuary. It's a nice little quality of life improvement mechanic that I am very thankful for. Next, let's talk about the endgame content available in Borderlands 3. Once you have finished the main campaign, which can be completed in roughly 25 hours, what is there for you to do, past reaching the max level of 50 that is? Well, happily, plenty. In fact, BioWare could certainly learn a thing or two from Gearbox on how to do endgame content well. The endgame content in Borderlands 3 is fantastic, and more importantly, it's varied and we're only 1 month into its release, which is an exciting prospect for the future. Upon finishing the main campaign, a number of features become available. Firstly, we have True Vault Hunter mode. This allows you to replay the main campaign again with a pre-existing high-level character with the benefits of all your skills and abilities unlocked. It offers more challenging enemies and an increased chance of legendary and anointed gear. Guardian rank also allows you to continue leveling past level 50 across 3 trees and gain useful passive bonuses and skins as rewards. Players can also choose to activate something called Mayhem mode, which allows you to increase the difficulty of the gameplay and enemy types by up to 3 levels. Each level becomes progressively more challenging, providing stronger enemies, debuffs to your character and weapons, and increased XP gain and a chance of rare loot drops. Mayhem mode is there to force players to change things up. If SMG damage is reduced by 50%, for example, players will need to look at other weapons and combinations to succeed. Combined with this, players can choose to play 2 types of Horde mode content, the Iridium Proving Grounds and Circle of Slaughter. Finally, players can farm bosses for legendary loot, and thankfully, as the bosses in Borderlands 3 are excellent and varied, offering rewarding, challenging and fun combat, these never really get old. Over the past 4 weeks, Gearbox have also offered special weekly events to celebrate Borderlands' 10th birthday. These events have included increased loot drops, rare boss spawns, increased Iridium, and for the next 2 weeks, Borderlands 3 is offering a special event called Bloody Harvest to celebrate Halloween, which includes new enemies, new legendary weapons and skins, and a new area. And all of this is offered for free. These weekly events have been great, and I hope that they continue to become a regular thing. In fact, I would love to see Gearbox introduce weekly community challenges with rewards at the end of these. Borderlands 3 has a strong community, and events like these would be only strengthening this. Of course, Borderlands 3 is a looter shooter, so the quality of the loot on offer is pretty key to the game's success and the overall longevity of the title. Without good loot, players have no reason to come back once beating the main campaign. This was a problem faced by BioWare's Anthem, and I'm happy to say that Borderlands 3 does not have the same issue. In fact, it has some of the best loot on offer when compared to its main competitors. The loot in Borderlands 3 is amazing. From guns to character mods, shields, relics, and grenades, there is so much variety and character to each piece, and it's clear that every gun and artifact has been lovingly crafted. There are 6 manufacturers available. Every weapon design is unique, insanely inventive and creative, and they all handle differently. Some have alternate fire modes that can change the feel and handling of the weapon radically. Some have crazy perks, buffs, and deal elemental damage. Gearbox have always delivered on great loot and gunplay, and they definitely do not disappoint here. The loot is one of the game's strongest elements, and it keeps you coming back for more. There is something so satisfying when hearing that special ping and seeing that golden glow of a legendary weapon and then getting to try it out. Couple that with the amount of customizable options available, from character skins, heads, trinkets, and weapon skins, that there is so much to collect that players will be hard pressed to run out of things to grind for. Special anointed gear and customization skins are even available for purchase from Crazy Earl's store using these special shards called Iridian, which I am happy to say is not used as a vehicle for microtransaction opportunities. Everything is free and obtainable simply by playing the game. Revolutionary, I know. Certainly in Borderlands 3, it seems like the developers have massively increased the volume of loot available for players to collect. But have they increased your backpack and inventory space? Well, strangely enough, no. Your backpack size at the moment can be maxed to 40, and your bank space, which allows you to transfer items between characters, can be maxed to 50. Combine this with a lack of vending machines where you can sell off gear, and your backpack and bank become full very quickly, and players are having to resort to having several characters created in order to share gear between them for storage. It just seems like a baffling design choice and a frustrating one for players. Happily, it appears that Gearbox have been listening to player feedback and are now looking at increasing the bank space available. This will make many players, including myself, very happy. Lastly, let's look at the performance of Borderlands 3. Sadly, it is this area that I think massively lets the game down. Dante and I played the game through together on the PlayStation 4, and unfortunately during our time it came across a lot of bugs and issues, some of which were potentially game breaking. Let's start by talking about the terrible lagging issues and frame rate drops. These become very apparent during combat when huge explosions and spawning enemies would cause issues with frame rate drop. A bug involving menus also made navigating between menus slow and clunky. This was especially frustrating and seems almost unforgivable in a looter shooter when navigating between inventories to inspect new weapons and mods is a frequent requirement. Dante and I also experienced frustrating and immersion breaking audio and visual glitches when character dialogue would not kick in for one of us, or we would spawn into a level late and miss an important plot point or cinematic scene.
Leaving radiation shit
Hold
everywhere.
on.
What is that, my brothers and sisters? Impromptu stream for you today. Vault thieves are trying to gank your vault right out from under you. You gonna take that, or are you gonna show how sharp your teeth are? Daggertooth Clan, this one was practically made for you.
Here they come. Light them up. Get me close and I'll blast them.
Fucking love this with the music right now, I'm telling you. This is brilliant.
Well, have we got the same music on? Because mine's just kind of... It's just very pretty chilled. What kind of music have you got?
Rockin' music?
Oh, for fuck's sake.
Even in some cutscenes, character models would not show, and we were left staring at other characters interacting with nothing. These moments were just both hilarious and irritating in equal parts. Finally, on occasion, I also suffered the dreaded blue screen of death, and Dante's character fell through the level on several occasions. Though I didn't play on PC, I do know that a lot of PC players had real issues with crashes and performance issues, and bugs that caused their save data and their bank space to be wiped, forcing them to start the game again and lose everything and all the time that they had invested. For a game that has been in development for 4 to 5 years, these issues just seem unforgivable, and it is disappointing to see Gearbox release a title in such a buggy state. So overall, Borderlands 3 is a fun game with great new characters in the full Vault Hunters. It has great gameplay, amazing loot and endgame content, and offers massive value for money, but it is hindered by its many bugs and glitches, and a story that, though passable, fails to capture the magic of Borderlands 2 and is held back by some of its own inconsistencies, hit and miss humour, and its weaker main villains. With this all in mind, I would score Borderlands 3 a 7.5 out of 10. If you are a fan of the Borderlands franchise, then I would absolutely recommend buying it, though I would wait a few months for the inevitable patches and fixes that Gearbox are sure to introduce. If you are new to the Borderlands franchise, then play the other games first before jumping in. Regardless, Borderlands 3 is still one of the best looter shooters to come out this year and is well worth checking out, so maybe add it to your Christmas list or get it in the January sales. So there you have it. There are my thoughts on the game. Hope you guys found this review interesting and informative. If you did, please leave a like, comment and subscribe for more. Have a great week, guys and girls, and as always, happy gaming. Bye guys.